A very good day, I plead to the audience. I am Ilya, your moderator for today. So, today we are having a forum and we are pleased to invite two speakers. So, I would like to introduce the first speaker, which is Muhammad Arif bin Ismail. Thank you. And the second speaker, Nurul Aisyah binti Sansaludin. Alright, so before we go depth into the forum, let me briefly explain regarding curriculum implementation. So the term curriculum implementation refers to the act of working out the plans and suggestions that have been made by curriculum specialists and subject experts in a classroom or school setting. So teachers are the main curriculum implementers, while at the same time students, parents, school administrators can be directly or indirectly involved in the implementation process. So I would love to hear Arif overview regarding curriculum implementation. Would you like to go, Arif?
Okay, thank you, Elia. So, in my opinion, the implementation of curriculum is important and is quite a significant stage in this life of cycle. The curriculum implementation is an integral part. So, institutions are the great laboratories to plan, design, implement, and test the impact of innovation in competency-based curriculum implementation. They can contribute to the curriculum development and learning resources development center in a great way.
Thank you, Arif. So now let's hear it from Aisha.
Okay, thank you, Arif. Thank you, Elia. So after hearing both of you, I will just give a simple explanation or very a simple definition of curriculum implementation. So in general, curriculum implementation is a process that involves helping the learner to acquire the knowledge or experience, and it cannot take place without the learner. So that's the general view of curriculum implementation.
All right, thank you both speakers for the very informative um, overview of the very informative overview of curriculum implementation. So, once the outbreak has settled down and schools and institutions were seen opening again, we can see that most learning institutions are offering some form of hybrid learning options for their students. Before the pandemic, however, hybrid learning was offered as a way for students living abroad to attend lectures or seminars without having to be physically present. So, a hybrid classroom can be defined as any learning environment where educators teach a combination of in person and remote students. It includes a mix of students who are present in the physical classroom and also participants joining the class virtually. So there is, however, no standard ratio of in-person and remote student required for hybrid classroom. Instead, each hybrid learning environment is composed of the number of in-person students that the classroom can safely accommodate and the number of remote students that distant learning technology can support due to the outbreak that we are facing right now. Malaysian students have implemented ways that could be both beneficial to the student and teachers, which is to have separate days for in-person participation and other days for online learning. So this is to limit the number of students that are present during physical class. Okay. So there is no doubt that during COVID-19 pandemic, these online learning emerging technologies provide numerous assistance to both students and instructors and absolutely support different forms of distant learning and make education activities more accessible to students with more flexibility in participating, interaction, and convenience. So, my first question to our first speaker, which is Arif, what is your opinion regarding this learning approach? Can you explain further regarding your take on implementing hybrid classroom as one of the methods in the Malaysian education system and whether it can be deemed effective or not towards Malaysian students? So, you
Okay,
may go.
First of all, hybrid classroom is a cross between the traditional face-to-face classroom and online only. So, the entire concept behind hybrid classroom is to provide the benefits of online instruction with those of the traditional classroom, because a student outcome should be top priority for any primary school. The impact of hybrid instruction on students' learning has a far-reaching effect on whether or not the school will be offering or expanding their hybrid programs. The literature that focuses on the impact of hybrid instruction, the student achievement generally falls into three subcategories. The first one is studies that emphasize the amount of time designated to online activities. Second, studies that highlight the level of the student in the study population. And the third one, studies that compare hybrid instruction to complete online instruction. So the impact of hybrid instruction on student achievement is therefore assessed in relation to these three variables. Therefore, variation in time allocation could have a significant impact on student achievement in a hybrid classroom.
Okay, thank you, Arif. You delivered a very clear and precise definition of hybrid learning. Okay, other than hybrid learning, there is another learning approach that was widely being used since the outbreak has struck our nation. So, Aisha, might you be able to explain and add on to the statement I just gave you?
Yes, Elia, definitely. So, since many schools are being shut down due to COVID-19, the government insisted that teaching and learning need to be done from home, which is online learning. Generally, online learning at home is not easy, and teachers are now sharing the burden of teaching with parents. So, I'm going to talk about parents' engagement in children's education. It is one of the approaches that nowadays that we are applying in our education. So, facing this situation, parents should be able to play a role as children's learning companions at home, because during the pandemic, children spend more time at home because the schools are being shut down. So in fact, not all parents are ready for this new task. So the teachers have the responsibilities to it. The parents, including establishing cordial relationships and also cooperation between the schools and also the pupils, parents. So many types of research show that when a partnership approach between parents and teachers is evident, so the children's work habits, attitudes about schools and grades can be improved. So they demonstrate better social skills. Fewer behavioral problems and a greater ability to adapt to situation and get along. So basically, what I want to say here is about the parents' engagement in the children's education during this pandemic. This is one of the important learning approach. If I'm sorry, approach for our educational system for these days. That's all.
Alright, thank you to both of our speaker, Arif and Aisha. Now that we have discussed thoroughly the two most common learning approaches in today's learning environment, however, as we know, no learning approach can be perfect as it does not cater to all various types of learning styles, as not all students learn the same. So what educators can do is to improvise the use learning approaches to satisfy all learning needs of the students. Now let's discuss further on the issues that can be seen when implementing the two learning approaches that we have discussed just now in today's learning environment. So, as we know, switching from a traditional classroom and face to face instructor training to computer based training in a virtual classroom makes the learning experience entirely different for students. So nowadays, we can see that nearly all 95% of students use educational learning apps as a supplement to their education. So those e-learning apps will become increasingly important and play a larger part in learning. So during remote learning, technology issues have been a consistent concern in the lives of many students and teachers, but also remain controversial as students often cite these issues to get out of in-class participation. So some common problems that we can see in hybrid learning includes unstable internet connection, lack of computer or laptops, general technical problems, and inability to use software that is critical to the course. Okay, so now during this difficult time, um, it is almost impossible to obtain a good learning experience. So now during this difficult time, it seems that our gadgets are all that we have. Okay? So not all students are fond with the concept of learning online learning due to the lack of exposure in technology. If members of a class or a course do experience difficulties in this area, it can not only disrupt their own learning but also the learning of other students. So my first questions to our second speaker, which is Aisha, do parents play a huge role in the success of hybrid learning? Does parents' participation in their children's hybrid learning give a huge impact in the way they learn?
Thank you, Ellie. What a wonderful question. So, do parents play a huge role? As I mentioned just now, parents' engagement in children's education these days is a vital approaches during these days because, as you know, we are conducting online learning. We are conducting hybrid classroom. So, and also the children spend much time with the parents at home, so it is become one of the parents responsibilities to make sure that the children can participate in the online learning. So to relate this issue to the issue of I'm sorry, what's the second question? Oh,
Oh,
does parents' participation in the children hybrid can give huge impact? So yes, it is. So after hearing your opinions, I hope this opening people's eyes where parents do have roles in making sure the teaching and learning can be conducted online successfully. So parents should have knowledge on how to manage the ICT, on how to manage the children's classroom, hybrid classroom, and how uh, to manage the children's time to learn at home. So, however, some of the parents are working, and it could not. Then they couldn't be able to. I'm sorry. They couldn't be able to help the pupils to study on time. Therefore, the children's. I'm sorry. The parents should go to the teacher, and also they should approach the teacher to make sure they know on how to manage the ICT, on how to reach the materials that they're supposed to in assist the children. So it shows that parents' engagement in children's education is important nowadays, especially in technological innovation. So the parents should know how to manage the technological innovation. What I want to say, they have to be more knowledgeable than the pupils to make sure that they could help the children in participating the online class.
Oh, thank you very much, Nura Aisha. So, the next question I have is for our next speaker, which is Muhammad Arif. So, can you give us the second issue when regarding implementing the new? Can you give us the second issue when implementing the new learning approaches?
Okay. Before I start talking about the issue, I will explain about literacy first. So the primary sense of literacy still present the lifelong intellectual process of gaining meaning from a critical interpretation of the written or printed text. And the key to all literacy is reading development, a progression of skills that begins with the ability to understand spoken words and decode written words and culminates in the deep understanding of text. Once these skills are acquired, the reader can attain full language literacy, which includes the abilities to approach printed material with critical analysis, inference, and synthesis, and to write with accuracy and coherence, and to use information and insight from text as the basis for informed decision and creative thoughts. Okay. Malaysia faced one of the greatest learning losses towards our younger students during the COVID-19 era, which is the inability to read and write. Although the record shown an acceptable level of literacy among primary school pupils, this does not apply for primary 1 and 2 pupils. Literacy has increased tremendously as many students completed most of their kindergarten and primary 1 learning in lockdown. For primary 1 students in rural areas, they are usually taught to read and write from scratch as they were unlikely to attend kindergarten. After nearly 2 years of school closures, they are likely to be much further behind compared to their peers in urban schools. This is worrisome, not just towards the parents, as they may not having much time to facilitate their children at home, resulting the pupils in blank, but also toward the educators.
So, Aisha, can we consider literacy as important in a hybrid classroom?
Okay. Yes, Ellie. So other than that, literacy is important for the hybrid classroom because the pupils need literacy in order to engage with the written words in everyday life. Okay, think of how often you use your own reading skills in everyday life. It's not just articles like this one, and it's not just article, but that require literacy, but also signs, labels, and the messages on our phone too. So the hybrid classroom requires the people to be good in reading and writing because they need to reach the materials online. They need to be able to understand the instruction because the teacher wouldn't be able to instruct them verbally. So during hybrid classroom, they need literacy to make sure that they understand the instruction, and also they will be able to join the online learning because they could understand the materials, the content of the lesson from the teacher. So it is very important for literacy and for peoples to have to have literacy for our hybrid classroom these days.
Thank you to both speakers. Now that we have clarified two issues from both of our speakers, I would like to add on to the last issue, which is access. So, as we know, not all students are fortunate enough to attend hybrid classroom. Having access to join hybrid classroom is considered as a luxury for some due to reasons such as not having access to a learning devices and limited internet coverage as both of those cost a lot of money. Okay, so learning devices such as smartphones and computers are the basic on hybrid classroom. As we all know, hybrid learning cannot be operated without the presence of technological devices as everything is done online. So from taking attendance, attending classes, assigning and passing out homework to grading their homework using platforms such as Google Meet, Zoom call, Google Classroom as the medium of instruction only means that everything must operate online. Hence, without the main medium and strong internet coverage, the learning won't be able to take place as information are not being conveyed to them. Those students will be left out, however, from and left far behind in learning compared to their friend and do not be able and will not be able to keep up with the current trend in education. So since the pandemic, teachers are restricted to have face-to-face interaction learning. Hence why all information regarding teaching and learning is being passed up online. It's very unfortunate, however, that some students have to struggle more with hybrid classroom than others to receive education due to limited access. So, Nurul Aisha, would you like to add on and agree to what I have said just now?
Yes, you are right, Ellie. Because this has become one of the biggest issues in our educational system since the day of pandemic because many classes are conducted online. And the pupils need to access the materials for the hybrid classroom. As you mentioned just now, the problems of limited devices and poor internet connectivity become the barriers for the pupils to join the class these days. So let me take an example. So for my past experience, I've taught year three kids. I've taught year three kids in English. So I conducted an online learning, but only a few people's be able were able to join my class. So why this happened? Because they cannot access the Google Meet because they have no internet connection. They live in rural area with no internet, and also they have to share the devices with their siblings and also their parents. So this become one of the issue that I have to face. So at last, I take the initiative to create content lesson and upload it on YouTube. So they will be able to watch the lesson and do the activity after that. So this is why this issue is one of the biggest issue that we are facing as a teachers. So it is true that um, that uh, that access is important for the teachers to be aware for our today's educational system.
Thank you for the clear explanation, Nurul Aisha. So, um, we should also consider parents' engagement in access towards hybrid learning. I would like to hear your opinion, Arif, toward my statement just now.
Okay, thank you, Elia. As you mentioned earlier, having access to join hybrid classroom is considered as a luxury. Not all students have this kind of privilege. Some students that are unfortunate might be left behind because there are lack of devices and also limited in coverage. This is when parents should step in. They should find an initiative for their children to be able to access education. One of my suggestion is they should buy or make a loan to buy one device, laptop or any smartphone that are affordable. It should at least be able to connect to the internet so that their children are able to attend the online classes. Therefore, teachers should not be worried about their students' attendance and they can deliver their knowledge as usual.
Thank you, Muhammad Arif. So, we have thoroughly discussed the two learning approaches utilized in the new normal in education, which are hybrid learning and parents' engagement in learning in children's education. So, of by understanding the differences of both learning approaches, we are able to identify the issues that comes along when implementing the two learning approaches. So these issues should be known in order to provide learning opportunities that can cater to for all types of learners. For a lesson to be effective, teachers should know what is lacking when implementing the teaching and learning in order to improvise their learning styles to find the best solutions that could maximize the teaching and learning qualities. So, thank you again. I bid to both of our speakers, Muhammad Arif bin Ismail and Nurul Aisyah binti San Saludin, for um, for the very informative forum on curriculum implementation. So that is it. Thank you.